So one thing I think that's really interesting is that when you think about common objections to the minimal viable pitch, reps really think that prospects won't go along with it. They'll think that it's a trick. They will think that they've already tried to get the information and prospects won't give it. They think there's not enough time because they need to save a bunch of time for the demo, and there just isn't, it's just not going to work. And what I find really interesting is that all the objections really come from the rep. For the people that I've taught the minimal viable pitch, when they use it, they are shocked. And what they find is that prospects want to tell you more. They want you to help them end their suffering. Now, they're stuck in a role of the buyer where there's, mistrust to salespeople, where they want to control things, where they think they know what they want. But really what they want is a competent salesperson to not be an order taker, but to actually help them organize themselves, to become aware of their suffering, to feel the suffering, and then to use the feeling of that suffering to become committed to end that suffering, and then how to organize it even further to then work through whatever hurdles they're going to have in their organization to get everyone to agree for them to get what they want. And so really the minimal viable pitch is like we said before, helping you, the seller, teach the buyer how to be good at buying and to get what they want. And so the way that I usually address the objections that reps have before they actually try this is what I say is, if you just ask the 3W questions and increase the amount of questions you have, but you don't change how you structure and frame and anchor in the presentation in every single moment, then all your objections might be true. But if you follow the structure of the minimal viable pitch, and these are the three main slides, the agenda slide that talks about the intro, context, value, and decision. And then you have the decision slide that breaks down, what the decisions are going to be. Then you have the context slide that gets the shared mutual context. What you're going to find is each of these slides has certain frames, and each frame is like scaffolding that helps you take control, activate decision making, align with clear decision making, creating a lens, emotionally engaging them to get a little bit open, earning trust in terms of managing time, making space for them to talk, setting anchors that they're going to talk about this, whether they're aligned or not, and they're going to talk about next steps if they are aligned. And you're doing all these things up front, and then you're staying congruent with that throughout, and then you're coming back to it. And so when you do this, you're going to feel like you're an equal. When you do this, you're going to feel like you and the prospect are getting onto the same side of the table. And you're going to notice that prospects start leaning in. And I have a client that I asked them what changed, and what they told me was, what changed after using the minimal viable pitch was they said, first, it blew away all my beliefs that there wasn't enough time to ask all these questions, that people wouldn't answer these, and that they think this is a gimmick. And then once they tried it, they said one of the biggest differences, in addition to getting a lot more information early on and then being able to use that information to accelerate sales cycles and to keep the value and not have to discount, was that the prospects actually thank them. And I said, wow, so people never thanked you before? They're like, well, we did have a few people thank us before, but it's not every person. And I'm like, oh, okay, so some people did thank you. And they said, yeah, and the people who thanked me in the past usually only thank me at the end of the sales process. But with this deck, with the minimal viable pitch framework, they actually thank me almost every meeting. And what you're going to find is it's very subtle, but this framework really helps you in every single moment add value. And at first it's clunky. And what I have found is I have a certain way to present the slides, certain frames and anchoring that I do. And if you listen closely, watch a few times, you'll see that. This slide right here summarizes some of the framing that's important. But what I have found is that a lot of my clients don't actually say all the things that I say, but they understand the underlining principles of what's happening. And what they find is they don't even have to give that much framing or anchoring. But if they believe this is of value, if they believe that the prospect wants to share and is going to open up, it happens. And I always bring it back to this is the scaffolding, the railings that you need to be able to feel like you're an equal, to remain present, online, so you see all the options that are available to you and not get triggered in the fight, fight, or freeze, which is easy to do when there's that tension about people not wanting to answer questions or not answering fully. And it's a way to really activate the compassion and curiosity that's driven by the 3 W's. Are we aligned on the value? And it's like the confidence to know that if you're not aligned, that you're going to be the first one to tell them. Because not only is it suffering for them to waste time talking to a salesperson that's not aligned, but it's also suffering for the salesperson. Because sure, they might win some of the time, but they'll win a lot more often if they spend their time prioritized on those accounts that are most aligned. And they'll learn more about the accounts. And so they'll be able to inform a success team and the marketing team, and they'll be supporting the sales team more. They'll be getting more leads that are more aligned. And then the leads that they close, they will turn into successes. And those successes will become much better material to use in the sales decks. And so it becomes this flywheel, all aligned with ending suffering. And so the minimal viable pitch allows you to have the confidence that you can remain present, that you can sell as an equal. Because if someone says, no, I'm not going to do this, you're like, well, okay, I don't know how to present to you, because what I do is I understand you enough so that I can present how this may be of value or not. If it's not of value, I won't, it'll be a really quick meeting. And you'll stick to it. And even if it blows up a deal, and maybe it will blow up a deal, there's some terrible buyers out there, but usually it doesn't blow up a deal. And in this rare cases it does, it's because there's not enough suffering, there's not enough alignment. And these would be like a top tier prospect that you're just dying to sell to that will just waste your time. They'll say, talk to me in 3 to 6 months, build out these features, different things like that. And then in 3 to 6 months, either they ghost you or you just repeat the same thing. This is the way that you can sell as an equal. You can not waste your time, not waste their time. You can align yourself with compassion, and it just works. So all that I ask is that you take the template, you fill in the spaces for, like what's the decision that you're trying to get them to make, what's the alignment 3 core points that you're going to tell them ahead of time, what you're going to be presenting, and then fill out the context slide with them, do the core part of the presentation with that context, and then come back to the decision slide. And as they tell you more information, go back to the context slide. And when they're talking next steps, put that into the path to success. And then afterwards, email it to them, summarize a couple of the top key things that you heard, and maybe 1 or 2 questions that you would like to further fill out the notes for and update and send back to them. And then let me know how it goes.